Right, let's stick a banner on here as well. Right, in theory, they should be. Yeah, there we go. There's the banner. Right, I think we're live now. So, just doing the intro. Welcome to Free Association. I'm Dennis, and I've got a special guest with me this evening. This is a guy called Dr. Lenny Thyme, who I've known. I think I've known you for about 6 years, Lenny.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I think it's at least 6 or 7 years now.
I think we were
So
on
it's not bad
air
for an accidental meeting on the internet.
2017. So it's almost 7 years now, because we were The New Way was a radio show that ran from late 2016 to mid 2018 and quit right before COVID.
I think I jumped on just as you got to the flame, so it was like a week or two after you'd started connecting up with the flame.
Yeah, that was a while ago. And life still carries on in the same form, or so we believe.
I don't know. I'm locked out of Discord now on both of my accounts, so I can't get into either of them. I keep forgetting passwords and I forget with email. And my phone number's changed, so they can't send me text messages to two-factor authenticate anything. A mess, but I'll open an account and find everybody again at some point. Right, I didn't really have a topic. It's just a kind of a catch-up chat, really, Lenny. Unless you've got something specific you want to talk about, tell me about your projects to start us off.
Well, we're working on verifying time travel. Anywhere I go, it's Lenny time travel. But in reality, I think we're in multiple timelines that have the same narrative within the paradigm, but it shifts between the different timelines depending on how advanced that timeline is. And so the net effect is that the things we do sometimes seem strange, but affect other timelines. And in general, what we're seeing is that the timeline we've been on for the last 80 years is sort of phasing out because nobody believes it anymore. It has gotten that insane, but we can't do anything different until we lose the current paradigm. I can't hear you very well.
Yeah. Yeah, my connection goes in and out a little bit. But yeah, it's all kind of dropping away slowly to allow the new stuff to come in is effectively what's going on, I think.
It should be quicker. Hi, Don, to you too. I managed to figure out how to live stream it on my channel also. So we're going simultaneous on both channels. This is my good friend Dennis Barker. He lives in England. What a strange place to live. How are things going in the UK? Is it as strange as they tell us, or is it somewhat regular?
It's both. It's definitely both. The government's a complete shambles at the moment, but nobody was expecting anything else. Well, I think they obviously, when they were going for the election, they promoted as being completely rock solid and not the same as the last lot that was in. And then they've turned out to be exactly the same as the last lot that was, except on a slightly smaller scale. But marginally less arrogant, although it's difficult to be more arrogant than Boris Johnson was.
I don't know.
But Stan was arrogant in a different way.
Didn't you have a guy named Rishi something?
than white, which is always a mistake. Rishi Sunak, yeah, he was a bit of a bureaucrat. He didn't really do very much. He didn't say anything that was exciting. He didn't engage people very much, and all he was doing was not being Boris Johnson. Because we all decided we wanted rid of Boris Johnson pretty much at the same time. The whole country just went, no, that's enough of Boris. We've had enough. But Sunak never actually won an election. He was appointed, so well, he won the Conservative Party internal leadership election, but that's a load of old women with blue rinses. So it's a very limited constituency.
Basically, you can put
And he
lipstick
didn't
on a
translate
pig
to the
and
rest.
it's the same politician.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't quite as bad as Boris was. He didn't lie quite as much, but he never admitted to the lies that had happened while he was in government. So he's basically the same, and he didn't do anything about COVID vaccines or anything like that. He just carried. They're all carrying on the same narrative. So that's my judge point on whether people are telling the truth or not, whether they do a serious investigation into COVID vaccines.
Well, American politics is not worth paying attention to, so I'm not paying any attention to it. But I think Donald Trump does look a bit like your Boris Johnson guy.
Yeah, they're coming from a similar type of place. Johnson's dad apparently worked with the Rockefellers back in the day. I can't remember his first name, but he wrote a book called Virus, coincidentally as well.
Interesting.
That seems to be far too much of a coincidence to be a coincidence to me.
Well, government could be considered a virus.
Oh yeah, mind
I don't
virus, definitely.
Think about that.
But yeah, it becomes just the same people with a different face. Ultimately, the Labour Party's turned out took the Conservative Party light, and they're basically running the same policies. They haven't changed any of the major policies, apart from they're trying to fill in a gap on spending with there's allegedly a big hole in the budget that they were left that they've got to fill in. So they've got to cut a lot of things that people don't want to cut to balance the budget up a little bit more.
Well, here we figured out how to keep the budget in balance. We're just sending all our money to Ukraine and Israel.
Yeah, we're pretty much doing the same thing. But yeah, they're talking about cutting the winter fuel allowance to pensioners, which is £300, which didn't go down well. And it doesn't save very much money. It's just a lot of fuss over something that doesn't really save very much. It's 1.5 billion, I think it saves, and they've got to find 22 billion. So they're nowhere near sorting it out. It's just, but everything they cut is going to cause a massive headache for the government, and they won't last. Well, the leadership won't last because they'll get the blame for all these cuts.
Well, the economics aren't going to last anyway. It's just a matter of time before the large banks go under.
Yeah, David Martin's talking about 2028, 2027, 2028 is his timeline.
I was thinking more like late October or early November myself.
Right. You know, he reckons the insurance companies will like all the pension companies will start to go bust and insurance companies will start to go bust in 2027 just because of demographics. Because they just got to pay out
people
more.
People are getting old and there's not enough kids to replace them as workers?
Yeah, pretty much that's the situation.
What about all those furners you guys are importing?
Oh, sorry, say that again.
What about all those foreigners you guys seem to be importing? They make for entertaining news when your people are
Oh,
throwing rocks.
all right. Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. It's not that bad, okay, to be honest with you. Well, not in the northeast. It's not that bad. It's just certain news channels like to play that stuff up because it gets some ratings, and it all feeds on itself. So then you send somebody down to Dover, and they're filming. So a crowd turns up in Dover because they know somebody's filming, and then it turns into another report from Dover, and then it turns into another report from somewhere else on the same topic because we've got good ratings.
Yeah,
But I don't think it's that.
Repeat that, please.
I think it's exaggerated for effect.
Yeah, I think if we could invent a new world, we should do so because the current world as we're given it doesn't work for most people. So I've been focused on human scale, trying to get people to think about the ramification of their actions on the people they surround themselves with. And it's time to not organize in big groups, but organize in small groups and decide who can get what done and then get it done.
Yeah, small groups are definitely more effective.
5 is a good sized group.
5 or 6 usually works for me.
2 is actually a surprisingly
That
good
tends to
group
be
for
when
getting things done. We can get a lot of things discussed just between the two of us in the next hour.
Yeah. I mean, we'll jump around a little bit, but it's all good. As I said, I'm getting the hang of this again. It's only the last 3 days. The last 3 days I had the end of concentration to be able to do it, and I just thought, right, it's time I got back into it again. So I've been doing 5 or 6 minute streams every day for the last 3 or 4 days. So my audio podcast's back up and running again. I've been doing Rumble streams, and I'm obviously starting these longer streams with you. I'll get back into the swing of those as well, and then I'm up and running again.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing a lot of Twitter stuff, X, recently, and I have a group of people there that I trust to work with, but I don't trust the platform very much. So it's neither here nor there. We started a broadcast called Wonderland, in which we were talking, anything was a viable topic except reality. And we got through about 8 or 9 shows before reality intruded and arrested one of our characters and made way more drama than I care to deal with. But you would think that arresting a middle-aged poet would not take 2 SWAT teams.
Right, so they're so serious about it.
Yeah, overuse of the force. Although Obi-Wan's force is much more easily administrated than government force these days. So what are we going to do about this world?
Yeah, what are we going to do? I'm sitting and watching and thinking about it at the moment. I'm not in a position to do very much because I can't walk very far. I can walk to the end of the street, about as far as I can get. So I'm gonna have to do everything in
it does
taxis.
keep
If
you
I'm
from
going back
going
to,
very far.
so my plan is to start just there's a group called Truth Seekers which meets usually on a Wednesday and a Friday or sometimes a Saturday afternoon. That's my kind of people, and are talking about my kind of stuff about UFO conspiracies and that sort of thing. So I'm going to start going back to there, but I'll have to get a taxi to and from. And if I got the metro, it'd be too many stairs. I was trying to work out whether I've got to go up and down stairs to get there, and I do. If I get the metro, I'll have to just. It's too many. I'll get a taxi when I do it. I'll do it once a month.
Yeah, it's important to keep that networking going and live, because if you lose contact with other people who you can physically be with, you just go back into your own hermithood. Not that being a hermit isn't a bad thing, but I like being a hermit. But sometimes I do need to bounce ideas off people.
Yeah, a group that meets about 50 feet is a libertarian group that meets a month, and I haven't managed to get. I'm going to try and schedule my dialysis once a month as well and see if I can get that. All right, I think we've lost the connection there, I think.
For a moment, yeah, you were frozen, but I could continually hear your audio.
All right, as long as you can hear me, then that's fine.
It's not as good as it used to be. I think that I remember when I first got on StreamYard, it was a lot easier to use and clear, but our signal today isn't real good. Oh, Don says the audio is fine. So I guess the audio is good.
All right, as long
I'm
as
just
people
having trouble picking up what you're saying.
All right, so I've got two groups that I can stay in touch with. Plus, I've particularly got the Sunday group that I used to go to, the psychology. It's a psychology group. It's difficult to describe what it is, but it's a psychology / psychotherapy / shouting at people when you need to shout and crying when you need to cry, and encounter group style group. I don't know how to describe it because it just is what it is, depending on the people who show up. And even the people who run it don't really run it. They just let people show up who they are, and that's it. It is what it is. So I could go to that one for a little bit as well when I get myself back together.
I used to participate in open mics where everybody could get on the floor for 3 to 10 minutes and say whatever they wanted or sing something or act out a comedy sketch or whatever they wanted to do. And it was a good time. And once a week, everybody showed up. But then I moved away from the area, and nowhere else have I seen the same open mic thing. So I'm tempted to start a speakeasy and have open mic and have a place where people can hang out. There's 2 bars in town, but bars are not the place to have major conversations on things. So I have a dome that's accessible. I'll have to figure out how to do it. Maybe even broadcast what we're doing live stream so that people can see firsthand a representative of discussion.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that makes it a
Don.
model
Drum
for
circles and
everybody else
talking
to
sticks.
replicate. Yeah,
Yeah, I think models are important.
yeah,
That if
with the
people
poetry and
don't,
guitar thrown into good measure.
yeah, yeah, it's an imagination thing. If you can't imagine it, it'll never happen. So we have to go out there and really do some good imagineering because just because.
Yeah, I mean, I've never got up and done anything at an open mic, but I've been to a few, been to quite a few, and they all, yeah, they're always interesting. You meet interesting people at music events, anything with music involved in it, you meet interesting people.
Yeah, come to think of it, there was about 20% of things were musical, and people would bring their instruments, and there was a piano in the room. So you didn't have to participate. It wasn't one of
Yeah,
those
I used to go
things
to a,
where. Go ahead.
yeah, I used to go to a, not quite an open mic night, but like a band open mic. So a regular band, house band set up with people jumping in on the drums and the guitars and bass occasionally and bringing their keyboards in here and there. And one guy used to bring in a percussion rig and just play percussion along with everybody. But that's like a four-piece band, uh, and lots of old school rock going on because everybody was pensioners. But they're all session players. Almost everybody who got up was a session player or a professional musician on their night off on Monday, and they just wanted to play, which made it interesting, which made it like good stories in between the songs and good banter, like comedic stuff as well. Lots of people trying to be comedians or whatever, but just with good banter because nobody takes it seriously. So as long as you can play and at a reasonable level, which they all could because they're all professionals, or the large majority of them are professionals. It always turned out to be a big rock workout with a big production number at the end. I've seen people do a 15-minute version of Freebird at the end of that
Oh,
gig. They go absolutely nuts, and it's just for fun on a Monday night because I've got nothing else to do.
yeah, I think those things don't happen so much anymore, at least not in my neck of the woods. I always have trouble finding serious entertainment, but I manage somehow.
That it's the bar. It depends who the people running the bar are. Because it's a bar that's known for they've had this open mic running for about 20 years, I think, at least. All the time I've been in Newcastle, it's been running. And I think the previous owners of the bar used to run the same open mic. So it's been running for a long, long time, and every musician in the Northeast knows it exists. So people just turn up. People who've got a new album coming out, who've just recorded an album, turn up and play bits of the album.
Sure. Your name has to stay out in the public when you're an entertainer.
Yeah, yeah. There's one guy goes backwards and forwards to Nashville. He's a harmonica player. He just sits in Nashville for people when he's out there. I don't know. I don't know who the people are really. I just go along and watch them because I like what they do. But it's not bad for a free night on a Monday. It's a good way to spend some time.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Lately, I've been reading books. Have you read any good books lately?
I've been reading a local author whose name is Anne Cleves. She writes detective novels. I'm reading detective novels, but they're lightweight. Well, they're 400 pages each, but they're not heavy to get into. They're very easy to read. And they made a TV show out of them called Vera. The detective's name is Vera Stanhope. It's just 20 years of TV shows, but they're not on Netflix at the moment. I don't know where you can get them online. They're on ITVX, ITV3 over here. I don't know where you can get them anywhere else. So they're all set around Newcastle and Northumberland and Hexham. So it's all places that are local to me that I've been there usually. So it's good to see it from an author's point of view, because she's picking up on details of situations and scenery and all sorts of things that I probably picked up on, but I wasn't looking at it from the point of view of being an author.
No, but still, if
so those books have been keeping me busy. I've read 3 of them. I've got another. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been reading some Neil Stevenson novels, and there is a lot of words in a Stevenson novel, but it deals with the metaverse and the future and time travel and various different topics that lead me to believe that science fiction authors know something about the future that is going to be developed. The future's
Oh
already
yeah, I think
designed.
there's a 30 or 40. There's usually a 30 or 40 year delay before it happens, but they get a lot of things right.
Weirdly so. There's things that they couldn't have got right unless they actually knew what was going on, and yet they got them right.
Yeah, I think a lot of the old science fiction people were in on the plans or whatever.
Yeah. Although what we watched in going to the moon could have been fiction. They could have easily written a story, filmed a movie, and gotten us to believe it was real when it actually wasn't. And how do they get through the Van Allen belts?
Yeah, I kind of came to the conclusion that I used to watch the rockets take off, which always puzzled me when I was a kid. I was about 7 or 8. I was very into the space stuff, and I used to come home from school and the ITV or the BBC would be showing these rockets taking off from NASA. The ones particularly the ones going to the moon in the early 70s. I remember. I was about 6 or 7, so I wasn't very old, but I used to sit and watch. But that doesn't mean it was real. They could have just been going halfway up and coming back, or going around in a circle for a couple of days and coming back.
Or sending a picture of a rocket off and then going into a studio and filming. It just
yeah, there's a few different. Go ahead.
Stanley Kubrick said that he directed the whole movie thing, and it was part of a deal that he wouldn't talk about the stage of the moon and that if they let him make some of the other movies he made. So if you ever get a chance, look for his last interview, because he said some very interesting stuff and died about 3 days later. So they took him out.
Right. Yeah, oh, yeah,
I've always
they
wondered.
must have taken him out. Well, I've seen Capricorn. Is it Capricorn one where they stumble on people faking a moon lander in the middle of the desert?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember seeing
Sure,
Capricorn 1.
Elliot, yeah, Elliot Gould was in it, but I'm sure the whole premise of the movie was that they stumbled on some people faking a moon lander, and
Okay.
that
Well,
came out in the early '70s. So people must have spotted it early on. Somebody in Hollywood spotted it and gone, "Oh, I can make a movie about that."
yeah, it makes you wonder if what they tell us in the movies isn't preordained to come true. But the movies take a book and they change the book completely in what they show in the movie. But it gets into the psyche of the people. And I wonder how many people believe what they see without questioning it because it fits what they were schooled in when they went to school. And so, if the reality fits the image that you already have, why question anything?
Yeah, that's it. Most people don't go near the questions. I've got nothing but questions. I've got no answers. I've just got nothing but questions. uh, but I think that's a healthy way to be. In the end, it's healthier than thinking you know things.
I don't know anything, but I sort of have a way of grokking what's going on. And if I experience something, I tend to believe it more than if I just get told or see it or watch it on a screen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking at the comments. Dawn in the comments is saying, "How much do we imagine it into existence?" And I think she's
Yeah.
absolutely right. I think it starts with a book, and then you've got 100,000 people reading the book, imagining the scenes from the book, and then that becomes a possibility because all that energy's gone into imagining the scenes in the book. Yeah, it's collective. It's collective consciousness. Dawn, you're spot on with that. And you can imagine.
Um,
I mean, I imagined this flat 10 years ago, and it took 10 years to show up. Where I imagined it almost exactly where I'm living. I used to walk past these flats and go, "I want to live there." And I didn't have any way to do it at the time. I didn't know. I was too involved in living where I was living. But one of the previous places I lived in as well, where I had a small bedroom plus I had an office room, and I imagined that as a small bedroom plus an office, and I got exactly what I imagined in almost exactly the location I imagined it. So it showed up within 3 months. That one.
Pretty good. Yeah, I have imagined living in a castle. So I'm pretty sure my next rendition of moving somewhere is to go to a place that has a castle and allow us to just partake of the elaborateness. Do you ever watch a guy
Yeah,
named
you asked me
John
about
Levy?
John Levy.
Go
No,
ahead.
I haven't seen him. I don't. Right, you asked me about castles on the last stream that we did, I think, and I looked a couple of things up, and the only one that I saw that was round here that would look like it might be relevant was a place that was designed in the 1800s. It's not a castle; it's just a big mansion house.
Okay.
But there's fountain in the driveway, and five bedrooms with a couple of acres of grounds. So it's not quite what you were asking for, but not far off.
Well, I'm just surveying the situation at this point, and anywhere in the world is okay, but I'm not traveling by plane. So it could be a rather
So that limits you
interesting
to,
boat. Take a long, slow boat.
yeah, they still do floats across the Atlantic, I think, don't
Actually, now they have portals. You step in, blink, and you're somewhere else, and you get out of the portal and you got there. And I don't believe it myself, but people have told me they have used these portals to get around. And so if they've got secret portals that can teleport anywhere, we're not long for this fabrication of reality that we're currently dissolved in. So I look at the mental gymnastics that are played trying to convince people of something, and I figure that best thing to do is just sit back and watch it all and smile and wait until it is over, because it will be over rather soon, and then we can look around, see what pieces we have, and go from there. I really want to think on practical things, like what if I have a silver coin and I want to go to the grocery store? How do I get change? Because they're not going to have silver to give me change back, certainly not in denominated coin. So how do we really make it all work if it falls apart? Because it will work, there will still be things of value. It's just exchanging value for value is going to be difficult. And I don't know. I'm looking at how things are done and saying it ain't going to work. But it really has to work, because in the end, life works.
you? Yeah. I mean, it would have to be just whoever's running the shop keeping a ledger with IOUs or whatever, pluses and minuses. And then you keep a ledger and then you match them up at the end of the month or whatever.
Yeah, ledgers would work if everybody is honest in their approach, but how it's going to take a major redistribution of how things are to start with a new baseline. So I don't know. I I don't think it's worth doing anything in the current environment, because they're playing a big game of whack-a-mole. You get onto their radar screen and they hit you with this big hammer and send you back down. But I'm successfully banned in nearly all my platforms. So I'm guessing that a month from now we'll have 50 viewers on my station of this, but we got to keep doing it, because it's the only way to do things is just roll up your sleeves and do them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean that conversation about the future of money is something that I tried to put together locally with a group of people that I was hanging out with at the time. The lockdown protest people, but they weren't coherent enough. They weren't. It wasn't going to work because either people weren't interested in doing stuff online, or they weren't interested in doing stuff physically, or both, or one or the other. So I think they fall into two camps. Either you do it with physical means of exchange, or you do something electronic on Bitcoin or some kind of blockchain ledger system. But the people who want to do the physical exchange don't want to do the blockchain, and the people who want to do blockchain don't want to do the physical. So they're two separate groups. That's two separate timelines, effectively, isn't it?
Well, the blockchain group that wants to do everything through the internet immediately falls apart if the electric system is out. And I think that a lot of people haven't got a sense of trust in what they're doing. Not that they have trust in the bank system, or they have misplaced trust in the bank system, but there has to be some basis set other than economics. I mean, there is something to contributing to the net worth of the society, but delinking jobs from the minimum income you need to live, life should be free. Things to do in life may have costs, but the basic room and board and other things, I don't know. You would think in this sort of world there would be some sort of minimum that everybody gets. And I know there's a lot of people that don't get stuff at all, but the the idea of what we can do is sort of, it's been contracted to the point where you really can't do anything because the system works just as it's supposed to not allow anyone to do anything. Oh, thank you for the link, Don. I
Yeah, I
don't
think
know. I think things
it
could
all
have
happens
touched
in a
Major League.
yeah. I was just going to say, I think it all happens in its own time. If you try to push things, then it causes a ripple effect, and you end up getting a backwash back. It's not really what you wanted. You, certainly that's the way my life works anyway. If I try to push anything, I end up getting a backwash of unexpected consequence, unintended consequences. But if I try something and see what kind of resistance I get, and then I wait, if I find out the resistance is too much at the time, then I just wait. Eventually, I'll work my way through the resistance, and it'll just come to me naturally. That's the way it seems to work. But then you've got to know what the resistance is. If it's coming from me, then there's something I can do about it. If it's coming from somewhere else, coming from outside, or what appears to be outside of me, which I don't think actually is out a lot of the time. Then
I have a question
that I've got
for
less
you.
control over, except I think unless I reframe it as being part of me and then rearranging. Yeah, go ahead.
Could doing reishi change that? Would doing reishi with people send
Oh, yes, it does.
energy? How does
Yeah, it's
reishi?
Reiki's
Tell me how it
it's a
works.
classic way of
Where
removing
does the
blocks.
energy
So
come
if you can,
from? How do you move it?
well, it's the way it's described as universal energy. So it's coming from, it's in effect, it's the energy that's all around us anyway. So you can read it as being sunlight and vitamin D, or you can read it as being magnetic waves from the Earth, or a combination of the two, or however you want to do it. But it's just described as universal energy. It's God basically. In Christian terms, it would be Holy Spirit. But obviously, there's a lot of cultural stuff attached to that isn't in the Japanese version. The Japanese version's got a different set of cultural attachments to it. But if you strip all the cultural stuff out, ultimately it's telepathy. It's a form of telepathy. So there's a physical version there's a hands-on version, which is the energy coming from your body, which is in effect is heat. So it's the heat that does the work, but there might be something else underneath it that's generating the heat. But I'm not a science, so I don't know how the science works for it. But in effect, it's heat when you put your hands on, and it's a mental connection when you're doing distance healing. So that's telepathic for me, at least. That's how I describe it. And there's a lot of things you can do with telepathy that people don't even realize you can do.
I don't think
So
most
you can
people
direct
understand
the
they're
energy that
telepathic.
no, they don't, because they're told they're not, which is one of the things that keeps people subjugated.
Yeah, it's one of
I
those
don't know if you
things
remember. I did
that.
a
Go ahead.
no. Go ahead. Yeah, no. I was just going to say I did a show about 3 years ago when I first started doing my shows on Rev Radio. I did a show about water immersion telepathy, about stuff that was out of bath. I don't know whether you remember that show. It was a good show. I thought it was a good show because it was based on something that actually happened to me. I just I've built a whole collection of stuff around it, but I think everything comes back. A lot of things that are strange come back to telepathy, at least. Um, Healing comes back to some form of telepathy. Prayer is a form of telepathy. You can read it as a form of telepathy.
So the energetics of
So there's lots of things that
telepathy.
people don't quite have an explanation.
The energetics of telepathy are such that it's focused intention, really. And how the connections are made, I'm not really sure, but there's got to be a frequency involved so that once you've established telepathic communications, you must be able to regenerate that frequency again to keep contact. I don't know. I'm thinking that frequency and oh, something went wrong. I'm still here. Okay. Um, Frequency and time are related to each other, but time is denominated in frequency and frequency is denominated in time. So the explanation that we currently have from modern science isn't quite there. It doesn't work. It's circular argument. So maybe Tesla and his 369 has something to do with it in that it sets an overtone harmonic that resonates and things pick up. But maybe when we get off resonance and we change the frequency, things happen differently. And we've created another world where it's not connected to this world, but it seems the same because it doesn't look any different. Welcome back, Dennis. I saw you dropped off and came back
Yeah,
on. I saw that the stream was still
yeah.
going, so I was talking about frequency and time because I think we've got a circular argument that means we don't know much about either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It really
No, I
it
think
really begs consideration to ask what is time, how does it work? Because there's only one instant of now, and by the time we can define it as now, it's already in the past. But the now sort of drifts along continuously with where we are. And so past and future, I don't know. There's time travel, but once you leave this time, you can't get back to it. So I'm not willing to leave this time until I know my work is done. But who knows? Maybe the H.G. Wells and the Isaac Asimovs of the world are here now and choose to leave this time sometime in the future to go back in time and set the past for the next iteration of this future, which continually is rolling.
Yeah, so certainly H.G. Wells got a lot of things right. The shape of things to come was the First World War. Effectively, he picked up on the First World War and turned it into science fiction.
I have a 2-volume set of history written by same H.G. Wells, and it was published sometime in the 1930s, and then he added to it, and the later publication was like 43 or 44. But I believe it was a download and that it wasn't real history, that it's the history that we were taught that we're supposed to believe, that more and more seems unreal, that maybe we're in a holographic universe and we each are more than we appear to be, where energy is transmutable. Once you're not here, your energy transmutes and has to be somewhere else. So maybe a lot of souls have gone to the somewhere else and are here in body, but not really here. And that these NPC characters are still driving the world, but only because we're allowing it. And that to change the narrative and the paradigm takes us outside of the realm of time, so we wouldn't be fractal to the other timelines that we're currently on. And the multiple timelines come about because of the alignment of I'd say the stars, but there's things way bigger than stars that we're dealing with. In fact, we're somewhat small to intermediate on the scale of everything. And I'd love to figure out what the scale of everything actually is about, because we have too many artists' renditions taking the place of what we don't know. And people believe what they see, so the artist rendition becomes the true effect. And whatever you believe, that's what's true.
Yeah, I was thinking about the time travel idea, and is there a way to frame that as telepathy? Just because that's my go-to thing at the moment is telepathy. So if there's a way, because it's communication with the past and communication with the future, isn't it? So that in effect, it's telepathic communication, but with an extra step.
I think I think it's more like the old radio type of receiver where you could dial the wheel and change the frequency of what your reception was, and that humans are in such a narrow frequency, but there's lots of different frequencies that we're on all at the same bandwidth, but not at the same energy level. And so what goes on in this world affects other worlds downstream. But what's upstream affects isn't affected by what's downstream. It's the upstream that sends the effects to the downstream. So there's got to be a shuffle mechanism that takes you from one frequency to another frequency, and it has to be harmonic, or else you wouldn't be able to make the jump. And once
Yeah,
you go,
yeah,
there ain't
I'm
no
with you.
coming back. But they have to materially you can't leave. Physically, we're here. So what you get is an NPC, something that the body is functioning, but the brain doesn't change. And so the person gets stuck in a rut, and it doesn't get them
Yeah, stuck in the
anywhere
past.
because they're not really here consciously.
Yeah, because they're living totally in the past. It's like I'm stuck in
Or totally in the
1975
future.
or 77 or whatever. Or totally in the future, yeah. So it's
All right, my friend,
only
it
really
seems
living
like we've
here and
been at
now
this
that
for about an hour.
yeah, we're just coming up to an hour now.
Well,
So do you want
I
to
don't
just tell
want.
people where they can find you on the internet?
No, they'll find us. I'm still on
All
Minds,
right,
and
fair enough.
I end up on X, but as long as they know Thyme in the search engine will come up with something entertaining and weird. How do they find
All right, that's
you?
fair enough. Well, I've just started doing the podcast again. So the podcast is called Free Association, and you can find that on Spotify and Amazon Podcasts and all of the places you can find podcasts. You'll find it. I'm only doing like 6 or 7 minutes at a time. I'm doing really short kind of sound bites, just when I've got something I want to say, so that I don't have to sit down and think too hard. It's just whatever's in my mind. I'll just spend 5 or 6 minutes clarifying it into a podcast and then post it. But that seems to be working for me. I'm starting to pick up some downloads now again after a 6 months gap of not posting anything already. So it's starting to build up a bit of momentum again.
Good. Yeah, I'm at the point where whatever I put out is shadow banned, but people find it. And in the weirdest places, I make contacts with people who've heard me say something and want to have a conversation about it. And I'm all for the conversations. So it has been good talking with you today, and let's plan to talk again soon. Uh-oh. He's frozen in time. Time has a way of stopping, and then it keeps slipping into the future. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to sign out. Take good care, and we'll see you soon.